Well, good morning, Liberal Kansas, Southwest Kansas, the Oklahoma Panhandle, and all other places where you tune in to get your news and views from the middle of America. This is Earl the Leader in Times on Monday, November 17th, 2025. Less than 2 weeks away. We're a week and 3 days from
Well, it didn't take long to get to the 17th, don't seem to me like.
Thanksgiving.
Man, yeah. Get that turkey ready.
I've already talked with some people, and because of schedules and stuff, some people this weekend is going to be their Thanksgiving.
Well, there you go.
So,
Well,
I
then
guess
they can put up their Christmas decorations.
Well,
Some of them's already putting them up.
Yeah, Heather already got started yesterday.
Well, Brian's home. He put the big tree out front, so we're started. He said, "You want to plug it in?" No, not yet. I'm not ready yet.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, what a weekend we had. Heather's birthday's coming up, and so I said, "Well, what are you going to want?" And Rustin and Bree, my son and daughter-in-law, they were up watching Denver and Kansas City, so they're out of town for the weekend. And she said, "Well, I want to get that carpet out of the living room." I was like, "Why'd I ask?"
Oh my gosh!
Because we had hardwood floors under there, and once you go back and go back to the hardwood floor, so my Saturday was tearing out the carpet and the padding and getting all the trim around the edge, that stuff that holds the carpet tight.
All that. That's the worst part of it, is that tack strip.
Yeah.
You can really hurt yourself with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And my hands, pushing that pry bar underneath and hoping, what you try to hope is you can get a big piece going instead of
about that long.
Yeah. And crawling around the edge and getting all of that out of there.
Yep.
So that's what I got to do. But as soon as we got all of that stuff out of there, and you can see a lot of history in the floor because they had different colors of stain on it or whatever, and then there are areas they didn't have any at all. And we're like, I wonder what used to be right there, because there had to be something that was built in right there. And our living room and our dining room are attached, and then they have these little decorative, like just piece of wall that comes in just a little bit on each side.
Oh yeah, yep.
But when you take up the floor, it must have used to be a little bit longer because that part of the floor wasn't stained. So now, we just tore that up now, but eventually I'm going to have to sand that whole thing down.
There you go.
And then stain it all one color.
There you go.
And then polyurethane to protect that. So,
well, now you got a project.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, right before Christmas. Why not?
Yeah, and so you got to move all your furniture off of that floor and get that stuff off. And
I got the carpet cleaner coming tomorrow, I think, and I keep thinking, where am I going to drag all this stuff to?
But we did get all the carpet up and got all that torn up, and then since she had already got that far, she said, "Well, why don't we bring some stuff up from the basement?" So all the garland and the greenery and everything. No tree. Not the main Christmas tree. That waits till after Thanksgiving. But all the other stuff is up and around.
Yeah, it's getting ready.
And it does. She does. That's her thing. It looks good. She does good with it.
Well, I just left my little wood Christmas trees that I built. I just left them in the window all year because I didn't have any place to go with them, and they wasn't hurting anything in that bay window. So the blinds is pulled. So now then all I got to do is open the blinds and flip switch and lights on. I'm ready to go. Anyway.
Yeah. You built us we have one of those little trees you built us. They're those skinny ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have that one. We usually bring that out at Christmas time.
I built all kinds of those crazy things. I've built some really small ones, and then I built some that's 6 foot tall. Some out of 2x4s and some out of I got some over here at the shop now that I made out of the siding off the hog house after we quit raising hogs. And there's a few of them over there, a couple or three, I guess. And I don't know. I've made all kinds of Christmas trees out of various things.
It's just getting that angle right to match those things up.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like putting up crown molding. That's not easy. Some guys can do that with their eyes shut. Me, I can't do that to save my neck.
But here we are, right on top of the holiday season. And so, looky here, if we're a week away from Thanksgiving, we're only a couple of weeks away from the Christmas parade.
Yeah.
And get that going downtown Kansas Avenue, give away this 1979 Alfa Romeo. I have to get the picture up.
What are you going to do with that extra space you got once that leaves?
Yeah. Well, now it's over here. It's already out of my garage. I've been leaving my Tahoe out. That was my Tahoe space. But I'll be able to park in my own garage again.
Well, there you go. There you go.
But someone's going to get a fun little ride.
All right.
It is fun. And for a little car, it feels more like, I don't know what kind of suspension system they put in those, but it's better than what my little Ford Courier pickup has, I can tell you that. And it glides over some of those things. I drive it on the bricks because we have to bring it around back over here, and it's just smooth.
Yep.
And a classic old ride. This is our 25th Leader in Times Christmas parade. How about that?
It don't take long to build those up. I was watching some old YouTube stuff last night. We was kind of flipping around in some of these shows. And I don't know, some of them 2022, way back then. Gosh, we've been doing that for 3 or 4 years now.
How about this? We didn't even miss a year during the COVID.
No?
We did
Nope.
the Christmas parade through that, and had a good time. So we're still 25 years in a row, and so we thought, let's do something special, give away this car. So
There you go.
gonna give that away, and
What are you going to do when it comes 50?
well, whoever's next be doing that.
Give them this office.
They can do whatever they want. I'll be watching on video from the home by then, probably. I don't know. I'll be, if I can make it, that'd be 79.
Ah, shoot, that ain't old.
Yeah.
I ain't seen nothing yet by then.
Oh, but
Oh, gosh.
no, looking forward to that. Got to get our pole. The girls are going to hit me up, I know today, about the pole decoration.
Yep, I see somebody up north there. I don't remember where it was, but they had a pickup load of stuff, and they was out. Somebody was on a step ladder up there, and they were getting ready to decorate the pole when I drove by yesterday. So it's in process.
'Tis the season,
Yep.
and so we got to get that figured out. I kind of have an idea. I got to see what's available to do it. Might talk to you when we get off camera to see what crafty thing.
Oh, you must
see if
be
it's
desperate.
possible. Well, I just don't know what's available out there for this, so I have to see. But we'll see what you have.
I bet that's not the easiest thing to decorate a pole. Now, I'm telling you, that's kind of tough.
We've done some different things over the year. I've always tried to make it somehow relatable to what we do. So one year we had Snoopy's doghouse all decorated up like he had it on Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown. Because, Peanuts was a comic strip for a long, long time in newspapers.
Yeah.
That's where it started.
Yep.
And so we did that one year. We did, we made these holiday snacks last year. We had a cup of hot cocoa, some lollipops, some peppermints, and decorated the pole up with that. We've had an elf hanging off the pole, reading the newspaper that Santa Claus is coming to town. We've done different things over the years, and other people do some really cool things up and down Kansas.
Yeah, there's some neat ones. Really is. A lot of thought goes into that, and a lot of work.
Does.
So, anyway, but
I wonder when Larry's coming in to see us this week. Larry
I
White.
don't know. Maybe he's got some ideas. I bet he's got ideas, all right.
Well, it's today. They want to know up front. They're like, we got to do something today.
Maybe he can phone them in.
Yeah. So we got to get. I got it in my head, but we'll see how we make it happen if it's even possible. So, got that going on. The Saints and Lady Saints traveled down to New Mexico this weekend and played. Each of them played 2 games, and they both lost to New Mexico Junior College, and the Lady Saints lost in overtime by 3, and their New Mexico was number 11 in the country. So we were right there with them. So I think that says a lot about where we are. Yep. And the men's team, it was their first loss, but 5-1. I mean, that's a great start for both teams.
Yeah. Yep. That's pretty good.
The girls beat a Dallas team, and the men beat, I think, New Mexico Military, and so 5-1. I think they'll both have some games coming up. It's going to be starting conference. I think they go to Cloud. I think Cloud is. Check the schedule here. Yeah, Wednesday they start the season, the conference season at Cloud, and then Saturday they'll be back home with Colby to start the conference here in the greenhouse, and that's a 2:00 afternoon start. So those games are matinee games, so you can come watch those then. And
You'll have to call in, call the boss, tell him you're sick, so you can go to that ball game at 2:00.
and then the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, Coffeyville will be here. So Cloud, Colby, and Coffeyville, 3 CCCs in a row.
That ought to be interesting.
And the first one at Cloud, and then Colby here in Coffeyville. So got that going. Sure, the high school is probably not that far away from their season starting. I'm thinking it's early December. I don't remember ever basketball starting before Thanksgiving, but I could be wrong on that because there's still playoffs. I did see this weekend that Great Bend and Hayes in a rematch for playoff game, and I saw some video. The stadium was packed in Great Bend. There wasn't a seat to be had. That place was full. They shoot fireworks off in Great Bend with their football team. But Great Bend won 29-22.
Wow.
I mean, and that's closer than I would have thought. And so Great Bend will be playing for the state championship this coming Saturday, and I think it's against the private school up by Kansas City. I don't know if it's Aquinas or which one it is. Let me take a peek for you real quick, let you know. But I picked them early after we played them. I don't see a lot of teams that's going to be able to hang with Premer, that huge receiver, tight end. Once he catches the ball, once they get the ball into his hands, it was going to be tough. So Besa Hoare Linwood plays Lenexa St. James Academy on the east, and then on this side, Great Bend will play Salina Central. Salina Central beat Salina South 49-24. So we're in the Final Four of Class 5A. And so still got these four. I won't be surprised if it's Lenexa St. James knocking off Besa Hoare Linwood, but we'll see. Besa Hoare Linwood, the number 1 seed on the east side against Lenexa, and then Great Bend and Salina Central. I think Hayes was probably the next best team on the west, so we'll see how Salina Central handles Premer. That'll be a fun game, and I bet you that's going to be another stadium packed. The people from Salina are going to come over to Great Bend, and that place is going to be filled up again. And I think this is Great Bend's year to get her done.
Well, so far.
They're getting her done so far. So, yep. Says something for the WAC, though. It's a strong year in the Western Athletic Conference. Hayes, Great Bend, Liberal all won first-round playoff games. Hayes and Great Bend then had to match up with each other. So Hayes won 2 games. Great Bend's won 3. We won 1. That's 6 postseason victories in the 5A bracket on the west side for the Western Athletic Conference. So that shows how strong that was. And the only reason Hayes isn't in there because they got beat by another WAC school. So you start taking each other out at some point. And so that's what they did. So you got that going. And we'll have a letter coming from Susan Laquago. You'll find it in Tuesday's Leader and Times, and she asked a couple questions. She read the article that Robert wrote about, the attention on the health department. And so she's asked a couple questions in there, and she asked her answers. So we're going to try to give them some answers on some of the things she's asking. But, again, no one thinks that the health department isn't needed or isn't an important thing. It's just people are questioning about the grant money, how it's used. They're just finding out about bonuses and things like that, and so they weren't aware of those kind of things, and so that's just coming public. And I also want to correct something that I've been told that that I said I was accosted by staff. I never said that. What I said was a family member of administration came up to me at the ball game and made some threatening comments. That's true. That 100% happened. Do I write it off? I write it off. He's an older guy. It's inappropriate, but sometimes people do things inappropriate.
Yep.
But you can go back and watch. I've said it right here on this show. I never said it was a member of staff or anything like that. I said it was a family member of administration, and it was. So I would say to who that person was, talk to your parents. But that did happen, and I have said on this show multiple times, and I'll say it now, don't ever go up to someone in public about these type of things. The way we take care of these things is at the ballot box, and talk to your commissioners. No matter who else you think has an issue here, or whoever has done anything you may think not doing their job, the facts are that job is secured by the commission. I believe it's been said multiple times. The administrator works at the will of the commission, and then they hire some other people. Some of these people that we have are elected, and they're not under the control or the direction of an administrator. They're independent.
Yeah.
And so they do their job as they, see that statute requires. And so, I just want to make sure that, we always seem to have to fix information that gets out there and that either people are intentionally misleading or just aren't paying close enough attention to know how things actually go. So that's what we'll do. We'll continue to set the record straight. And just for the record also, the Marion County Record, the newspaper in Marion, remember the one that got raided?
Yeah.
$3 million settlement with the city and an apology. What do you think of that?
Well, that's that's pretty good income. No, they were treated wrongly. That's what the award was from the the court, and so be it. But you want to be careful about things like that, and and I think that back to what you was talking about earlier. I think a lot of this, there's more and more attention being paid to how my money's been spent, how how different government offices. It don't make any difference whether it's on the state or the national or the local level. We're all becoming more and more concerned about the use of our money. I thought I had some stuff there this morning. I'd seen the headlines, and I think it was in Off the Press, about that food stamp program and how many billions of dollars were being paid to dead folks. And I don't remember what that number was, but it was a bunch. And it's just sad to think that happens, and the people in charge are letting it happen, probably knowingly in some cases. But I think maybe this blow up with food stamps, might begin to straighten this thing out a little bit. And it's, kind of, same way here locally. Some of these things that have been discovered and been questioned and all of that, hopefully, we'll come to some kind of a resolution and maybe make some new rules and regulations or a better understanding or, whatever it is. But that's, I think, the main thing all around the country, whether it's, any kind of government or any other agency as far as that goes, is about how my tax money is being used, and is it, going to a good cause to help people, or is it going to help an individual? And if you're paying, lots of people that are dead and have died, once you're dead, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, sometimes, Social Security is probably a good example too, but who's reaping those rewards? Because somebody's cashing those checks, and so I think we need a better job of looking into that stuff. And we've certainly got some folks looking into some of the things going on here locally, and it's not, to me, it's not a bad thing. It doesn't hurt. Every once in a while you have an audit, sometimes by the general public, and so
Well, other
that's where we're at.
watchdog groups across the state have taken interest now and are looking into Seward County finances, so it's not just locals.
Yeah.
That's when you get on the radar and you feel like, and the thing that gets me is this resistance to even revisit it. I just, that's what gets me.
Yeah.
That you won't even take another look. You're going to wait until January or February. I'll tell you something else too. While these BOTA complaints are being heard, it may get, depends on when BOTA wants to do the hearing and things like that. It may be December. It's probably going to be January, February. I don't know. But I'll say this. I would be very careful if I was a county on front loading a lot of spending, because that could give you a lot of problems later in the year.
Yeah.
If you think, well, we don't know if we're going to have this money later, so we better buy everything we want in January and blow all your money up front. And then if you have to refund the public a portion of that, was that really good? Is that really good
Yeah.
leadership? And also, I'm hearing people that I guess that there's a different way to protest. Not just you can protest your total, but protest on this, on the BOTA deal. So I know some people, I'll have to see what they've got going out there. There's some people working on getting that protest letter out there. When you pay your taxes, you pay them, but you can pay them under this protest.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the only way they'll hear you, if they won't hear the public any other way, then you're asking them to have to find every tool they have at their disposal. If you're going to use that on them, and don't forget, this letter, you got it, I got it, everybody got it, you got it. I don't know if you ever opened it.
I never did open it,
But you got it.
I knew pretty much what it was.
And it was basically saying, oh, we got this pending, possible, maybe, could happen, we don't know. Settlement that could come later, or this tax appeal case, and we need $5.9 million. So we got to do 21 mills for that of a 25 mil increase. Well, that only leaves 4 mills for everything else. And then they didn't do it.
In a normal year, 4 would have been plenty.
By everyone else's math, they put about 2 mills, but in their math, they put 5 mills towards this case. And they put, in our math and everyone else's math, they put about 12 mills towards everything else. Well, they only said 4.868.
But did they? Because they put it in they didn't put it in a restricted fund.
No, and then they can just go after a year, And then there's questions about if that's supposed to be there for that, and it's still in the general fund, then why is your general fund balance not including it? there is, I'm telling you, there is a major, major need for a financial person
Yeah.
at Seward County. That's not an unusual thing.
Well, even wipe this off of the map. I mean, as large as that budget is,
Right.
you know, it's what, 40.2 million or something like that.
If they spend it all.
Yeah, you know, but I mean, it takes somebody, you know, to track all of that and look at the expenses, watch the income, watch the investments, you know, all of that kind of stuff, and that being absent, you know, I mean, it's a part-time job for somebody. It has to be a part-time job because they've got other duties besides, you know, in addition to that, and it just has to be, you know, so to me that's, you know, that's really an important piece of the puzzle, and helping to resolve this issue is a chief financial officer that can go in and look and get a handle on expenses, and I dare say that, you know, I'd wager a little bit if we'd have had one of those in charge to start with, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now. But, you know, that's just my opinion against three that said no way. So, it's not needed.
Yeah. Well, and Carolyn Huddleston's done a great job of looking into a lot of the numbers and benefits and things like that. And she gave me a new sheet. This is Carolyn Huddleston put this work together because, you know, she always looks at the maximum amount of time off that someone can get. She looks at the maximum. And then there were some things said about sick days, because we did a report and we did not include the city's sick days because they're sick days. They're not paid time off. A sick day is different. A sick day could require a note. You're supposed to be sick. Unless you're all telling me out there it's okay to lie. And I'm assuming you're not going to say that. You're not going to say people lie and take a sick
To
day
take
as
advantage.
yeah. We're going to say people are honest, and that's why we can't include sick days. But she did, just to show number of holidays, number of sick days. And I love how she put this on her chart. There's two different lines here. Total number of days available for vacation, and then she put, if you are honest. So I'll give you those numbers, and then I'll give you total number including sick days. But Barton County, your honest days are 31, Ford County 41, Seward County 50, City of Liberal 31, City of Liberal Police 32, and City of Liberal Fire 37. You say, why do they get more days? Well, they on their employee handbook, police and fire gets more days, but they work different kinds of shifts.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the fire shifts are crazy, but
They work when there's fire or an emergency or about anything else.
or they're working at 3 in the morning because you never know
Yeah.
when there's going to be a fire.
That's right.
We have a 24/7, 365 fire
Yeah.
department.
Yep.
And
Well, they go on medical calls too, you know, car wrecks, you know,
Yep.
and that kind of stuff. It's not restricted solely for fire. There's all kinds of different things. And now then rural fire's even taken over the emergency management, you know, and so that's additional.
So that just shows Seward County and City of Liberal regular 50 to 31. That's 19 days more for the county if you're honest. Now, let's say you're not, or let's say you've been really sick that year. Total number of days, including sick days, for Seward County is 50, and for the City of Liberal is 40. That's 2 weeks more. It's almost 4 weeks more, a month more, if you're honest, and it's 2 weeks more if you're really, really sick. So, you know, I'm sure tonight, when the county meets, they're going to try to go through all of our coverage when they have the microphone and nobody can question it. They're going to try to go through and try to state that a lot of things being said is not accurate. And this is going to be one of the things they're going to try to tell you is not accurate. But the numbers are right out of their handbooks. And there they are. And they're going to say, well, they didn't include that. And, you know, it's not 50 days. They're including vacation. They're including holidays. Yeah, because let me ask you this. Do you think National Beef is going to be closed the day after Thanksgiving?
Probably not.
No. You want to know why they have to work? They have bills. And you know what one of those bills is that they have to pay?
Their taxes.
Their taxes. So you want to know who they're working for while the other people are taking it off?
Yep.
They don't get that day off, Commissioner Fuller, who you said everyone in Seward County gets these days off. It was Columbus Day the other day. Don't fault people for taking that off, the bank, whatever. It's Columbus Day. But you want to know who worked on Columbus Day?
National Beef.
National Beef did.
Among others.
USD 480 did.
All the local business in town, most of them except the banks.
You could go to the grocery store.
Yep.
You could go buy a car. You go, well, no, if you could have bought the car because the banks were closed, but you could have gone and looked at a car.
I bet you could have made arrangements. I bet Ford Motor Credit was wide open. Welcome arms.
So I'm telling you, no, not everyone gets all these days off. Again, not faulting the county or the city or those who provide these as benefits. But for you to believe that everyone gets them off, you're just not living in reality. That is just not what's happening out there in the real world. These other people have to work those days because they'd like to eat and they'd like to live under a roof. And they can't do that if they took those days off. And so 50 days, if you're honest, for Seward County, and 31 days for a regular city employee. And Ford County, if you want to do apples to apples, Ford County, that's Dodge City,
They're of similar size.
41 days. They get 2 weeks less, basically, than Seward County. And right here in Seward County, the city of Liberal gets 19 less days. So, I mean, is that unfair to make that comparison?
Well, I mean, that's what the data shows. That's not just you making up stuff or Carolyn making up stuff. That's what the data shows, that she's done the research. She's got a encyclopedia worth of information that have came from, you know, county records, county numbers, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And so it's not making it up. It's what it is. And she just happens to be the one that got interested into digging into it and looking at it and, you know, saying, hey, look at this. And a lot of people have started looking at it. So, you know, but it is what it is. And she's not making it up. She's gathered a lot of information from a lot of people and put it all together so you can read it and understand it.
She can, and she has.
Yep.
And we appreciate her doing it. And it's the same reason why we put this, we used some data thanks to the Kansas Policy Institute doing some research, and we added to it. But it's the same reason we provided you this, just to show you that no, past commissions weren't just burning through money and spending all the money and spend. They were tucking money away, putting money in the bank, covering the costs of government, and saving some up. And in the last 3 budgets provided by this commission, from that high of $7.68 million in the bank, they have shredded that down to 5.16 at the beginning of 2025. And according to their numbers, they'll start 2026 with $2.37 million in the bank. And then, if their budget they just did makes it to the end of the year, they'll have $80,000 in the bank. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff. Don't you think you need to know that? Is that important for you? You know, and if we weren't telling it to you, where would you hear it?
It'd be pretty quiet out there, I'd say.
Yeah. And we're just doing the job of keeping you informed. And I haven't heard anybody I haven't heard anybody. Of course, tonight I'm sure that they will have spent a lot of your resources to try to come up with some answer to this chart, and I'm interested to hear it because there it is, and it's all public record. Those are numbers you can find. They're out there. We just put it on one chart, and you can see what they've done. So this idea we'll keep spending reserves not until after 24, the budget year, did they start doing that. And that was the first budget year that these new commissioners, or the trio, Persephone Fuller, Tammy Sutherland Abbott, and Scott Carr came on, and their first budget they got to put together was 24. And they're going to get to put together 24, 25, 26, and 27. You say, well, wait a minute, isn't there election next year? Yeah, but the election's in November, and they will already have passed a budget in September, just like this one just got passed for 26. So their 4 budget years that they put together are 24, 25, 26, and 27. And those numbers at the top are what they start with. It's not what they finished with. That's the January 2024 balance that started the year. So you can see they started with 7.68. They were gifted $7.68 million to start their terms, and you can see what's happened to it since. Without looking at those numbers, without Carolyn Huddleston looking at the numbers, without David Box comparing what they're doing and how it matches up with statute, people would just not know how their government's working or what's working and what they're spending it on. I mean, I think it was
when the Kansas Policy Institute starts looking into stuff, takes an interest. That's quite the thing. And they, I think that's a very honest bunch of folks. They look into numbers and details quite well, and provide graphs like that. And to me that's very interesting, because every time I see that, I think those 2 poles right on the end, if you just draw a line, and if you set that over there, like across the lake, it would also reflect those bars going down just as much as they went up. And anything, below that line should have been tax reductions in place of, building that up. But there's no such thing. This one, that shows the expenses, and
So what you're saying is they could have given that back. And in the last 2 years of these budgets, if that had been tax reductions, you could say that's what happened.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
the taxes weren't reduced.
No, the taxes weren't reduced, and you still came out less money. So what's going on?
You're spending more on government.
Yeah.
That's what's happened.
Yeah, bigger growing government, yeah.
Just more.
And it's
more.
not all, you can't attribute it all to inflation.
No.
Inflation rates, down probably 2%, something like that maybe, kind of depending. But even if it was 5%, that still doesn't answer the question as why that fell nearly half, why it fell 50%. I don't know exactly what that is, but it's, 40. Something like that.
Well, and so just looking at that increase between 23 and 24, what that last commission before the trio got in, they were able to grow the reserve by 11%. 11% more in the reserve. They put more in the reserve. They outpaced inflation into reserve funds, into the surplus. So don't tell me that all of a sudden you just had to blow through that money. I think that, but that's why we look into it.
Sure.
That's
well, to me that chart right there was very interesting, because it actually shows you, what's really going on.
Yeah.
And when I seen that, I thought, wow, that's quite the chart. Didn't realize all of that, but you can see it in that right there.
Steve says if you and folks like Mrs. Huddleston hadn't been digging and sharing, the public would still be in the dark. And that's true. That's true. you know, and all we're doing is providing citizens a platform to get their information out. And maybe tonight at the commission meeting, some citizens will show up and share some more information. And then, you know, we'll share what they say. We always have. We didn't just start doing that. We've always shared.
No, you've always covered the commissioner meetings.
Yeah, yeah. And
Robert's there with his tape recorder recording every word of it.
That's right.
how he reports it, right off that tape recorder. So,
yeah. And so be there again tonight. And like I said, I'm sure that they'll use part of that time or something as another, you know, defense of their actions. You know, and I'm all for listening to an explanation. You know, tell us why.
Yeah.
You know, for one, the sales tax failed miserably. 74% against raising the sales tax for road repairs out in the county. You know, want to hear what they what's their plan with that. I also asked the chairman about now that Conestoga has said they want to visit with the county and set up a plan of how they'll take care of this whenever the judge does reach a decision, something that works for everybody. They're willing to do that. You know, I've been told that will be addressed at the next Board of County Commission meeting. That's tonight. So we'll see about that. I would just say this. I know there's a lot of anger towards the commission right now. I get it. It flows through here. And it's not even begun because people haven't really got their statements yet. As soon as they get their statements, the lobby is probably going to be filled here because it was already, we already had people coming in about their taxes before. Once they start getting them, they're going to want to, I can't imagine as soon as those go out what the next meeting is like. There's going to be a lot of anger. What I caution the commission is just getting defensive and taking shots at the public. You know, the public is who you serve. The public's, I can say this, like their decision or not, the public is never wrong because they will correct on their own. And they'll do it at the ballot box. But don't paint them out or say, well, you're just misinformed or you need to come hear it from us. You know, I think that they can see these numbers and make decisions based on the facts. You know, I mean, I don't think that you have to, you know, now I'm not saying don't. Go listen. Go listen.
Yep.
But then go verify that statement. Go double check that. You know, I'll give you an example. We were told that DCP had just been paid off in 2025. And I took that as fact. And I said, well, if we just paid DCP off, then whatever that payment made that was already built in the budget ought to be able to go toward this. So I went to find it. I could not find it. It's like, where? What's that under? So I asked, made a public information request, and I got a very good answer back from the treasurer. That was paid off years ago. Paid off years ago. At $750,000 a year for 4 years to pay that, and it wasn't payments. Those were credits. Those were credits. Yeah. There were no checks passed at that amount from Seward County to DCP, National Helium. They were all credits. So that's how they handled it. So no money left the county. As a matter of fact, when it was over in 2021, more money starts coming into the county because they're now getting to keep that money, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to do a credit.
Well, it's an additional $750,000.
Yeah.
You know, so if their tax bill was $1 million, they only paid $250,000. I don't know what it is. I bet that's just, you know, kind of give you an idea, they were paying
A
$250.
lot more.
Yeah, yeah, but you know, but anyway, you know, that's how it worked. They just credited them back, you know, enough, you know, over, I don't remember, 4 years, 5 years, whatever the term of the agreement was, and it was paid off. But it was paid off in 2020 or 21.
To this day, have you heard anyone representing the county tell you we didn't share the right number on that? The closest you got was during a comment from Scott. He said, maybe you got a date wrong, as if that's okay.
Well,
And maybe they want to think that's okay because they got a date wrong. They put the wrong date on their resolution. And they think that's okay. I guess they don't, you know, but ask your citizens if a date matters.
Dates are important. Believe it or not, dates are important.
Yeah.
Except my birthday.
Well, let's say somebody sold a 20-year-old some alcohol.
Dates are important.
No,
That's
well,
the
I'd
reason they
go in
got
and
them little signs.
I would say, no, this resolution that the county passed had the wrong date on it, and it was okay for them,
Yeah.
so it should be okay for me.
Yeah.
It's not,
No.
though. The date
Nope.
matters. Documentation matters. They did not have the taxing authority to change anything in this year because that's not what they passed. They passed 26 tax year. And you're saying, but Earl, isn't that? No. Look at your statement. Look at your statement you got. And it says right at the top that the proposed property tax increase in public hearings 2025 Seward County Revenue Neutral Notice. It's for the 2025 year. That's what the tax, that's this.
That's this year.
You pay taxes due this year.
Yep.
They'll fund themselves with it next year, but you're just now paying for 2025. They had no permission to change 2025. They didn't give themselves, they gave themselves permission to change it in 26, which you can't do ahead of that. So it's all messed up. And that's why we believe strongly they're going to be reduced back to revenue neutral rate. And the facts are clear. Not just that one, but this letter that came with that. This letter here. And you notice how these things, by the way, I just want to point this out. Notice how these things fold exactly the same? Because that's how I got it. This is your statement. They may try to want to run away from this one and say, oh, well, that's not required. But this is your contract with the people. This is what you told us. That's how those taxes were going to be used. To the mill, they told us. So it's not just this. They could have sent just this. They chose to make sure you knew why they were asking so much of you. Here's why. And then they didn't do it. And I'm still trying to figure out how they came up with what they ended up passing and then totally ignored this and only 4.868 for everything else, and they put 12 mills towards everything else. 12 new mills. And let me say that. Here's something else they're going to try to keep misdirecting you. They're going to say they added $1.5 million in this new budget for the Conestoga payoff. That's true. But let's look back to what they did last year. They put $1 million. With 43 mil budget, they put $1 million. So as you move forward to this year's budget, you say, okay, well, you already have $1 million budgeted with the first 43 mills. Now what's this extra 14 mills for? Okay, so instead of $1 million, we're going to go to $1.5 million in that. So we're going to need extra mills for that. So only 2 mills of the increase went towards that $1.5 million because the first 43 mills already took care of $1 million. Why is that so hard for them to figure that out?
I don't know. Well, even if you add inflation in there, it still don't total up to be 14.
No, but they only put 2 of those toward
Yeah.
the Conestoga case. They're trying to
Yeah.
claim they put 5. Either case, theirs or everybody else's, that is still not even close to what your letter said.
Well, on their chart, it says $1.5 million.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah. But it was $1 million last year. So let me ask you this. If you were paid $100,000 a year and your car payment was $600, $600, $600, okay, and you say, well, I can pay that $600 out of that $100,000 I make a year. But I'm going to go up, I'm going to go trade my car in, and my payment's going to go up to $800. So I now need to make $100,000 plus $200 a month more to pay that extra, to stay where I was, right?
Yep.
So we're only talking about the $200. You don't say, oh no, all of that $800 payment goes into new money. No, you were paying it with
you're already paying it.
You're already paying that $600.
Yeah.
You're only talking about how much did you add to it. You only
Yep.
added $500,000 more this year
Yeah.
to that same line item from last
And
year.
that's about a little less than $2 million.
That is not hard math. But they're going to try to convince you, no, it's 5 mils. And even in their misstatement, that is still 9 mils for everything else when they told us 4 mils for everything else. They did not follow what BOTA requires, and that is previous notice and not to go over what you told people. And they went over everything else. They went over. And if they're allowed to kick out letters like that, and the state allow that to happen, or that their resolution is the wrong year, and they're allowed to they don't have to be right about anything, but you better be, when you pay them, you better be when you fill out your documentation,
Yep.
you better be, but they don't have to be in any case ever. Anything that they send out, they don't have to be right. You think BOTA's going to go for that?
Well, it's more important they be right than me be right, perhaps. You know,
Yeah, because that affects 22,000 people.
I mean, you know, and if I'm wrong or I calculated it wrong or whatever, then you know, and I've got some royalty interest, and I remember one time for some reason, I don't know why, but we missed one of the royalty incomes. And as a result, or the taxes, I guess, not the income, but the taxes on a royalty, which didn't amount to a hill of beans, but anyway, I had to pay the penalty because they didn't have it on there, but I was the guy that had to pay the penalty. So we finally got that straightened out, but that happened a couple of times. And, you know, I mean, like I say, it wasn't that big a deal, but on the other hand, you know, so no, they have to be held accountable just like everybody else, and should strive to be that way. And I think that, you know, part of that striving to be that way would be to hire a chief financial officer. That would solve a lot of problems, in my opinion. I mean, a lot. We wouldn't be where we're at today.
Yeah. And that's all. But we're asking is hold us each to the same standard.
Yeah.
And if your document's not right, it gets tossed. And that's the case we're making to BOTA. That's the case we're trying to make sure that all the rules are followed the same.
Sure.
That
That's what rules are for, to follow.
Yeah. And there's still questions about whether or not you can even tax for an unknown like this, potential payback. The other thing that always gets me is this thing said 5.9 million, and they already had $1 million in the bank. So it should have been 4.9 million. You know, they didn't need, this is their worst case scenario number was 5.9 million. And I know how they got to that number. I can do the math to get there. And I've seen a chart that how they got there. I don't dispute that. I dispute one, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
I dispute two, you already had some money in the bank and you're putting more money in the bank this year. Three, there were other options like no cash warrants and the best option, go visit with them.
Yeah.
Go talk to them and say, hey, when a ruling comes down, what are our options here? Instead, Conestoga reached out and they said, hey, we're not going to expect all this at one time.
You heard them right here.
Right here. They shared it with you. We're not going to ask the county pay. We're going to say what works. What can we work out? What works for you? What works for us? Let's work this out. They're about to spend $150 million more dollars out there.
Yeah.
My
well,
goodness.
look at the look at the additional cost that's been, the additional expense that's been to them dealing with this. Also, in
Yeah.
addition to the taxes, I'm sure that they've got lawyers and, you know, tax accountants and all kinds of folks that, you know, are involved in this thing, that they're paying additional dollars to deal with it, and, you know, nothing's happening. And so maybe tonight we'll get an explanation, or, you know, a date of a future meeting, you know, between the two, and see if they can't come to an agreement and get this thing settled quickly, and then everybody will know and everybody will be happy.
Yeah. Well, last night, Donald Trump asked for something that I think the public's been wanting to have released for quite some time. What was it? We're going to discuss that right after this.
Our loved ones leave an impression on us, and it's important to make sure their lasting impression honors the life they led. Since 1956, the Jones family has been providing lasting legacies to the lives of our loved ones, and that torch has now been passed to the Creekmore family. The commitment to compassion continues by offering the largest inventory in stock in the region, with in-house custom craftsmanship that makes sure each piece is as unique as the life it represents. With a combined 82 years of experience and professional designers on staff, Jones Monument continues to provide affordable pricing and convenient turnaround times. They are ready to serve you from 9:30 to 5 Monday through Friday and 9:30 to noon on Saturday. Yes, our loved ones may have passed, but the memorial left behind stands as a testament to our never-ending love. The staff at Jones Monument understands that, and that's why providing monuments is more than a sideline at Jones Monument. That's all they do. Visit Jones Monument when you're ready to make an impression beyond a lifetime.
Fall off the bone ribs, dripping with our signature barbecue sauce. Tender pulled pork and brisket smoked to perfection. All served with family recipe home-style sides. It's all waiting for you at the Brick House Barbecue and Brew. Open 7 days a week, your barbecue appetite can be satisfied anytime for lunch or dinner. Brick House serves full dinners, combos, sandwiches, and take-home packs. Enjoy a variety of brews on tap or a mixed drink. Shaken, not stirred. Give your taste buds a treat at Brick House Barbecue and Brew, 24 East 2nd Street in Liberal. Like us on Facebook and see our full menu at brickhouselk.com. Seeing that barbecue, I did something different this weekend. I saw somebody do this, so I thought I'd give it a shot. I cut all the ribs apart first, and then you can get the rub on all sides.
Yep.
And then cook those up, and then I put them in a pan with sauce, and then put that back in for about a half an hour to 45 minutes, and then took them out of that and put them back on and let that stuff get tacky. They were pretty good.
All right.
They were pretty good, and they were baby backs. I usually prefer the not the country style. What's the other?
The bigger.
Yeah,
I don't remember what they call
but they still came out
Yeah.
good. And seeing Brick House on there,
them.
I've been to Brick House, Billy's, Midtown. I was at Billy's on Saturday night, and they do a prime rib. And I got to admit, that's a pretty good
Yep.
meal. Heather and I usually split a big one, and because it is big, and get side salads, and that's a lot.
We was out there. I guess that was Saturday night. Yeah, we went out Saturday night. Well, Saturday evening, and they had cheeseburger. What was that? Cheeseburger soup, I believe it was. Had a big old bowl of that. That was pretty good. and I don't know. Brian had catfish, and so anyway, but yeah, I got a text from somebody saying you need to go try that cheeseburger soup. There's enough out there that you got some left over. It'll last for a couple of days. No, but I didn't. I ate the whole cotton picking bowl. But anyway, so I don't think that's on the menu, but you got to ask for it, but they might have it. And it could be only on Saturdays, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I tell you what, we've got some great local choices.
Yep, sure do.
On Saturday at noon, before Heather put me to indentured servitude, taking out the carpet, we went over to Midtown, and they've got a $9 pizza deal on Saturday. You get 3 toppings on a large pizza. And Heather had the salad because she won't eat pizza these days. But I had a 3-topping pizza.
Well, there you go. I had some left to take home.
Yep, I did. There's no way I could do the whole large pizza by myself. So, no, it was good stuff.
Yep.
And we're fortunate to have what we've got.
That's right. That's very true.
And I tell you one thing I love, if you're ever doing something late at night and you're like, is there any place left open? Go up here to El Pastorcito at midnight.
They're just getting cranked up about
Yeah. Yeah. And you can still get good food even at midnight.
Gosh.
And I'm glad we have some of that. So, no, we're fortunate to have what we have. Well, one thing people want to have is they want to see that Epstein file. And it's in Congress's hands. And so last night, I don't know when, because I don't know if Trump ever sleeps, but he said, release the Epstein file. Congress, I'm calling on Congress to release the Epstein file. What do you think of that?
Well, you know, this thing has drug on and on. I mean, you know, I think most folks are tired of hearing about it, but, you know, what's in it? What's so important? You know, whose names, I think that's what everybody's interested in, is whose names are in it and what does it say. Of course, you know, the Democrats think that Trump's name's in it and he's going to be mentioned and all of that, but anything I've heard that, you know, he actually kicked Epstein out of, you know, his residence in Mar-a-Lago, you know, for one reason or another, or maybe more. You know, and all that, but I don't know, you know, it just depends on who's accusing who, and I don't know that I'd even trust that thing by now. As many hands that it's gone through, you know, has it been doctored or is it the original? So I don't know. I think there's a way lot bigger fish to fry than that. You know, I'm kind of interested in this food stamp thing. If, you know, there's as much corruption in that thing and fraud as they claim there is, I'd like to see the results of that. You know, perhaps same way with Social Security. You know, is there any corruption in that? You know, I mean, you could go to, you know, voter registration. There's a jillion different things that we could be looking into rather than the Epstein file, because that, to me, that don't really affect anybody one way or the other. You know, other than we're nosy and want to find out something about somebody else, and hopefully their name's in there. But, you know, I don't know, it's just crazy. But they got, you know, so let's just show it. Just show it and let it be what it is and get that behind us and proceed.
Yeah, and I'll say this right here. If Trump is in there, then let him face the political consequences of that.
That's right, yeah.
If anyone else is in there, let them face the political consequences of that. That's the way we handle it in this country.
Yep.
And, you know, if these underage girls were mistreated, then that needs to come out.
Yep.
And, you know, get that out. So I say, you know, he's urged there's supposed to be a vote come up on that, and he told the Republicans, vote to release it, get it out there.
Yeah.
So let's get it out there and get that behind us. I mean, whoever it's embarrassing for, that
So be
your
it.
name's on the list for whatever reason. I think, how do you verify, validate it? Well, you used to have a media that could do that for you, but I don't know if they want to do their jobs
Yeah.
anymore. We're trying to do the best for you right here in making sure that you understand what's happening in your own community, and we're supposed to expect these other sources to be doing the same thing. Do they? I don't know if they do anymore. We have to do it at the local level because there isn't anyone else to lean on.
Yeah,
Everyone's like,
that's right.
well, Earl, why don't you take some heat or is that? I said, yeah, but what am I supposed to do? Just
Yeah.
lie
Ignore
to
it.
people? Or, that's a lie by omission.
Yeah.
If people won't even cover this or tell you, that's the same as being dishonest.
Well, and a lot of that's not going to get any better. It doesn't make any difference what it is, I mean, you could use the food stamp program, for starters. If the first time that fraud was noted or believed it was, had they put a stop to that, it might not include all these billions, and I'd say billions of dollars now that they're thinking are fraudulent. A lot of that stuff would have been, put to bed early if people would have been held accountable right to start with. But when you just let it slide, the next thing you know, then you're involved in, big time mess. And just, do the right thing to start with, and then you don't have anything to worry about.
Just a quick side note, looking at the notes here, I see Calvin saying, I know this is off topic, but today I'll get my heart transplant. Well, we'll
Wow.
be thinking about you, Calvin. Hope that
Yeah.
everything goes well. And
All right.
I hope you didn't eat anything. I don't know the rules on that. I think you're not supposed to have eaten anything and all of that.
Man.
So good luck to
good
you
deal.
today. And as soon as you can, get back on the show. We love seeing you and love seeing your comments. And we wishing the best for you today. Godspeed on that. But yeah, this SNAP program, I saw where the Ag Secretary said, you have to reapply. We got to start over and get the paperwork right and all this stuff again. And that,
I'm all for that. I don't see a thing in the world wrong with that. It'll cause you some, some concern, I guess. But on the other hand, if you don't qualify, then you don't get it. You might have to go get a job. But anyway, no, I think those times should be coming to an end, and that's, this overtaxation for things like that is just really unnecessary. But these folks at the trough have learned that, they can get our money, why they don't have to go anywhere else except that trough, as long as they can keep dumping the money in it. And there comes a time when the public gets tired of, filling that trough for everybody else to eat out of. And so I think I think that's a great idea that everybody else has to reapply, and hopefully, their application has got some pretty serious questions in there about why do you really need this.
and it's there for those
Sure.
who do.
That's right.
We want
Yeah.
people who are down on their luck,
Yeah.
who are just caught between jobs. That happens.
But you don't want them to be dependent on that forever.
It can't be a 50-year plan,
No.
30-year,
No.
20-year, 10-year. No, it's supposed to be to help you get back on your feet. And of course we all
Well,
want
it's
that.
like stepping stones over here. They got a limit. You can only stay there for, I don't know what, 30 days or something.
I don't know, but you can't
You know,
become a
I mean,
permanent resident.
No, you don't just move in there and live there for the next 20 years.
No.
It's a hand up. And, but, well, I've heard stories, folks have been on that SNAP program for 13, 14, 15, 20 years. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, you can do what everybody else did to, help get you that funding for that. You can go get a job and pay taxes and, and help yourself. Don't depend on the government, because you're never going to be wealthy if you depend on the government.
Well, and I think that's one of the biggest things in life is, when you earn that check. I remember first time my youngest daughter started to lifeguard at the pool, and she brought that check home and she said, "What's FICA?" And started
A way to get your money.
see those deductions come out of there. But also,
Yep.
that's your money. You made that money.
That's right.
You earned that money.
And they took it.
And and one day, that Social Security and all these other things that you pay,
Yeah.
there's a reason, but that's your money.
Yeah.
And I think when you earn your own money, you have self-worth.
Yeah.
I
bet.
saw another lady the other day saying she was owed food stamps because the government said she deserved them. That I'm thinking, what government gives that kind of impression that you're owed it? But then I think right here where we had a commissioner say, we don't want folks to think we don't want to take care of them. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. We don't really
It's
want to take care of them. Maybe
no.
for a short period of time,
we
as help them out.
that's not a permanent station. I mean,
Yeah.
we want you to be able to take care of yourself.
Yep.
You want to be able to take care of yourself. I mean, I remember when I was younger, there were people who had to have benefits. I get that. But they wanted to get out of it as soon as possible.
Sure.
Now you got people saying, the government says I deserve it, says I'm owed it. No.
Yep.
No. It's like, well, if you've shown that you've done absolutely everything you can and cannot find a job right now, then we will help you until you can, but that's not permanent. You have to, that's why work requirements or, going out on job interviews. And you have to be willing to try to get employed.
Yep.
Staying at home and just receiving other people's money is not a job option. And I think that's why we have socialists getting elected, because they see the system and they think, well, yeah, this should be what it works for everybody.
Yeah. Everything's free.
Who's going to grow the crops? Who's going to, when you go to use your food stamps, who's going to work at the store? Who's going to work anywhere?
Yeah.
Just so you guys can stay at home? That's not the way it works.
For long, everybody's staying home.
Yeah, why should I go if they'll just take care of you at home?
Yep.
And that's why socialism fails. The way capitalism works is because it requires us all to contribute to one another. We're all got to play a role. But
Well, and I don't know. I just sat here thinking that, that reapplying for SNAP, that might not hurt if that was done on an annual basis. I realize that'd take quite a agency to do that.
but
When
just
you're
that
dealing
right
with
there.
40-some million people, but on the other hand, what if you reduce that to 20?
But that question is asked right there. Annually.
Yeah.
That's like saying, I'm going to be on this for the entire calendar
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. But at least that'd stop a lifer from being on there for 13, 14. Once you get on it, you never get off. So,
Yeah. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying, it's shame that you have to
Yeah.
think that you have to,
yeah. Wait a year or,
that you can get on it
or
and
you
never
don't
come
want it.
off.
Yeah, yeah. And that's not the only program like that. There's, most of those government programs are lifetime things. And, but in order to get our taxes lower, and reduce the amount of property tax that the working folks are providing that's how you do that. You put some kind of a question out there. Do you really qualify? How's your income this year compared to last? You have to go to work for yourself, and you should want to do that. There's a lot of independence coming come from working for yourself.
Well, and I say this, even if you're working, for another company, organization, whatever, if your mindset is I'm working for me, I'm working for myself, what work I do is going to reflect on me, and you start thinking like that, I think you'll start seeing the level of your work improve.
Yeah. Well, your salary might even improve.
Yeah, it will. I have no doubt. I have no doubt. But if you want to know what, I'm working for these guys, I'm just going to do what I have to.
Yep. Just
Then
the bare
you're only
minimum.
going to get paid what they have to.
Yep. You're going to get the bare minimum,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And when somebody else comes along with, more, well, I don't know what you call it, but anyway,
Gusto.
yeah,
Let's just say that.
that you might be replaced because this guy can do your job and half of another guy's. So, no, I don't know. It's just, but that's the way that we have. I think the education system and the way things have worked out. Well, let's just depend on the government because they'll hand out money right here and right, and all these grants and all that kind of stuff, all these programs that, from healthcare to whatever it might be. Let's just depend on them. Well, what kind of a lifestyle is that when you get right down to it? Of course, I guess if you've been dependent on them forever, you don't realize, how good things can be if you do work for yourself.
What do you think about Neil Gorsuch, Supreme Court Justice, who said the country's in trouble not because of foreign people or anything else, but just because we aren't learning our own history?
Well, I think he's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. I was looking again this morning, the other day we talked about some of those civic questions. I gathered up a few more here. We can run through them right quick, but
Well, let's do one, and we'll give
Okay.
people, we'll do it now, and we won't give the answer.
all right.
And go ahead and ask your question, and then
Okay.
you answer it out there. You tell us the answer to this.
Name the U.S. war between the North and the South.
Oh, you answer that. You can provide the answer to that one. See if you qualify to be a citizen.
There you go.
But what do you think about President Trump and saying that Mamdani, reach out, that those two have a talk? What do you think about that?
Well, I think they probably need to have a talk because, Trump's seriously considering withdrawing a lot of federal support to the city if things go the way he thinks they're going to go. And no doubt, if everything's going to be free, that means more and more federal support's going to have to go to New York. And so I think, there's a serious problem there. And landowner knows that, lots of our federal dollars go to New York to support various programs and agencies and policies and that kind of thing. But, those two guys they're probably about as opposite as anybody you ever seen. But guess what? They're going to go talk. That should be interesting.
Yeah, and I think the point you're making is valid. If they're going to use money that they could have been using to fix their streets or other things, but they're using that to provide freebies, and then they want, well, we need this bridge, we need help with this bridge, we need help with this thing. Say, well, then you're going to have to. That's money you got to create locally.
Yep.
You know, there's just no way.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy
No.
because somebody has to pay for that food, or whatever it is. Somebody has to pay for the fire department or the police department. Of course, I don't know. Maybe you're going to eliminate that and trust everybody to do the right thing, and so you don't have a need for any more police. Under Mamdani's rule, everybody's supposed to be nice guys and and all that. Can you imagine trying to operate anything without a police force?
Well, Hochul already said, the governor of New York, that she wasn't going to be able to help free bus rides and stuff like that. So I don't know how, and he's got a city commission type council
Yeah.
that he has to bounce things off of. So there's a lot of things, that he can promise, and then what's
Yeah.
going to happen when he doesn't deliver on them?
Well, that's when the riots and all that kind of stuff start. You told me this was going to be free, and I was expecting that, and that's the reason I voted for you, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see, what happens.
What about, it looks like Maduro in Venezuela saying he will designate the cartel de los Soles a foreign terrorist organization, or the State Department is going to declare that, and that's Maduro's basically his operation. And looks like they want to try to do some talks. Maduro wants to do some talks, but what do you think about our role with Venezuela and trying to get Maduro out of there?
Well, I guess probably the main thing is that who's promoting all these and trying to get those drugs to the United States, and the main concern, I think, is the death of tens of thousands of people due to, drug overdoses or whatever it might be, and Venezuela is right now, I think, probably the major exporter of those drugs. And, so if Maduro is supporting that, I think maybe, everybody might benefit from that except the drug dealers. And, we don't need those things here. And I think it's evident that, there's others that don't think we do either, especially if you're one of the individuals that had a death experience in your family or maybe yourself, and so, but he's got to be the guy that's supporting that, and because it's easy money, or it used to be anyway. So, but it's up to the people, and that's the way with all these. I was listening to some guys this morning talking about Iran, and the people there are beginning to, decide that, hey, this government's been this way since, I think they said 1979. And so we're getting close to 45, 47 years of that kind of rule. And they were talking about the people are getting a little more brave all of the time because they've seen, what's been happening with their government, and then there's a few things, I think one of the things that they mentioned was the destruction of their nuclear capabilities. That brought a little more encouragement to the people. So around the world, people are not necessarily in favor of the kind of government they're getting from their government. It doesn't make any difference whether, it was here in the United States or there are other places. People have ideas and want to live, a decent life. Don't want to live under the rule of a king or a dictator or, a government that don't act in favor of the people. So I think that Maduro he's part of the problem, not the solution for those people anyway.
Yeah, the State Department put out a release that said neither Maduro nor his cronies represent Venezuela's legitimate government. Mm-hmm. Cartel de los Soles by and with other designated FTOs, including Tren de Aragua and the Sinaloa cartel, are responsible for the terrorist violence throughout our hemisphere, as well as for trafficking drugs in the United States and Europe. But if they designate them a foreign terrorist organization, there's been questions about whether Trump can blow up these drug ships that are coming out of there.
Yep.
But if they're designated a foreign terror organization, that opens up some doors on how to address them. Yep. One of the things that Trump said was, how do they go after Maduro's assets and freeze those and make life more difficult for him? Well, by designating a foreign terror organization. Trump said it allows us to do that, but we haven't said we're going to do that. We may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. they would like to talk. And probably after having their ships blown up,
There you go.
you know, they might want to have a conversation. And we've got a pretty significant military buildup down around there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know how does Maduro, what kind of exit strategy can he have at this point?
I don't know. Maybe that's the reason they're going to talk. They're going to give him an opportunity. I don't know. But, well, you know, it's all about the people. It always comes back to the people. There's more people than there are government. And so we'll kind of see how that works out. But at least they're going to talk. How about that?
Did you see this rift between Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Yeah.
And she used to be a real stalwart. I think she was the one who hollered out when Biden was giving the speech, say her name when he's talking about Laken Riley,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
jogger who was
Yep.
killed by an illegal immigrant. And he wouldn't even, and he said Lincoln Riley. He said the name of a
Yeah.
coach instead of the woman's name. But she's always been a bit of a firebrand. But now she's saying maybe she's taking politics too far, toxic politics, and that now Trump's coming after her, and because, you know, she's not just 100% on board. But what do you think about that?
Well, I said, you know, and I hadn't really paid a whole lot of attention to it. I wasn't, you know, too familiar with it, but I did see her this morning. I think it was on CNN, and she was kind of, you know, maybe apologizing, saying that maybe she'd gone too far and hadn't really thought about, you know, what she was doing. I'm sure she was listening to the cheers when she was, you know, making some of those statements and one thing or another. But apparently, her and Trump kind of got crossways, and you know, he said some things and she said some things, and so I think from kind of what I gathered this morning, she's willing to, you know, kind of back off a little bit and you know, try to make amends, and hopefully, you know, Trump will too. Maybe they'll get together and talk. Who knows? You know, little discussion among opposites don't hurt a thing.
No. That's why we tried to come together in here and talk about a better border policy. That's why we try to talk together in here, and it's not just, well, we want this, we want that. It's how's the best path forward? How do we move this thing forward? How do we advance together? We have those conversations.
Sure.
We all have our sides. We all want to see how
That's right.
we want things to go.
Oh, you always got to have a side.
But you also have to listen to people.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't understand about where we're at locally, because it seems like one side has just shut the other side off, will not listen to the people. I've only seen it a couple of times, and in both times it always ends in change.
Well, you know, sometimes you just have to admit you're wrong and be done with it, you know, and usually when you do that, you know, then things start getting better immediately. But, you know, sometimes you don't have to admit you're wrong if you can prove you're right. But
Even if it's not about, sometimes it's not about right and wrong. It's about, look, we could go eat here, we can go eat there. Everyone else in the car,
or you can go to I don't care.
everyone else in the car is telling me to go here, but I'm going there. All the evidence tells me, and it points out, you know, that this is where we're going to go. You know, is that going to make everyone in the car happy just because you're at the driver's seat right now?
It just means you're going to end up paying.
Yeah, well, in a lot of ways, that's true. See, Kathy here says she hopes their mics work, and yeah, I hope that they get that worked out. I know that it's hard sometimes to hear
Yeah.
the commissioners, and I don't know if they're using some mics like some churches use or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, those things, you know, you got to get up close to them. You know, past experience, you know, you need to get right up on those things. They're not made to pick up your voice, and a lot of times, you know, you're rear back in that seat or kind of move back or something, and there's 2 or 3 feet between you and the mic, and it's really difficult to, you know, to hear, you know, and if you don't kind of make an effort to lean into that mic, then your voice is going to be pretty low. And I don't know, you know, other than changing you know, changing microphones or get some like we've got here, you know, some of these little portable lapel mics, why, you know, that's because, and some mics, you know, I mean, there's some that you can sit there on the desk and about anywhere in the room you can pick up something, but those just are not that kind of mics.
No, and there's other systems where you can have a mic that has a wider field. They call it the gain, but you have to hold a button down, and then when you let the button go, then you're muted. You know, and that might be a better system for them, so that way, you know, they're not speaking out of turn or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they can only, you know, when they push the button, then they can share what it is that they want to share, and then they let go of the button, and it's back to mute.
Yep.
There's a lot of systems out there,
Oh yeah.
and
Yep.
but yeah, it's helpful to be able to hear what they have to say. And like I say, I'm looking forward to tonight. What is their plan for the roads? What are they going to say? You know, I hope they don't think that, well, we'll go back and ask for permission for another half-cent sales tax vote. I think that is a terrible idea right now.
Yeah, well, I don't think they will do that because that suffered such a defeat. But on the other hand, they're going to have to work within the budget that they approved. You know, and it could be revenue neutral. But so if it is, why, you know, it'll be the same maintenance budget that they had last year. And you know, I mean, up until now, we've always had a road and bridge budget that allowed for maintenance and, you know, resurfacing. Sometimes it was kind of difficult, but you get the job done. You might have to do less miles or whatever it is, but, you know, you could, you know, for forever, they've always been able to work that out. And, you know, how all of a sudden, you know, every road in the county, I guess, went to pot. I don't understand how that happened because, you know, I mean, it's hard to keep those things maintained. But they're trying some new practices out east here on Road O, and I think P, maybe they're working on that a little bit. You know, with some material to harden that surface, and it appears like it's going to, you know, be pretty good. So, you know, if that results in less times running that grader up and down the road, you know, that costs a lot of money to run those things up and down the road. You know, between diesel fuel and then wear and tear, and then, you know, in about 5-6 years you have to buy a new maintainer. Those things are not cheap anymore. You know, so that could be accredited to, you know, some of that, you know, less maintenance to those roads, and you could put more money into, you know, buying some of that hardener, which I think they call it Permazyme, I believe it is. But anyway, rather than buying a new road grader, you could buy another, I don't know how many gallons of that, but, you know, that would certainly be. But I don't think that road maintenance is going to stop just because they didn't get the, you know, the half-cent sales tax. I think it's going to continue as it has in the past, and, you know, yeah, it's hard to keep up with those, but you got to do what you got to do and stay within that budget. So we'll kind of see, but I'm not too worried about, you know, things just coming to a screeching halt because they don't have money, because they do.
Yeah, they've got it, and no one is saying go to it. You know, we're shutting down the county. They're going to
No.
still have.
Sure, they're going to operate.
Yeah,
You know, maybe not to the extent that they are, but they're going to, you know, it might be some belt tightening. Should be probably.
but do you think they should? You think they should spend all their money up front if they do need equipment?
No.
Buy that immediately.
You always do that at the very last. Things that, you know, kind of like the old saying, why do today what you can put off until tomorrow? Well, you know, let's put off until the end of the year, you know, and see where you're at in your budget. And I know I've experienced those times, and, you know, some departments, they get pretty close to the end of the year, and they get a little bit closer to the end of their budget, you know, but there are things that they can do, and those department heads are all responsible people, and, you know, they know how to do that. But you don't spend a whole bunch of money right up front that's not really absolutely necessary, and thinking that, well, I don't know what you're thinking, but that's kind of the wrong thing to do in my opinion. So, but I think they'll be fine. It's just a matter of saying, hey, we didn't, if this voter thing goes through, and we expect, maybe it couldn't. There's probably, 50-50 chance that it, either it will or it won't. It could be more one way or the other, but if they have to operate on the same dollars, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because the price of things have gone up. But I think that they can probably, most everybody can get through, and it might not be easy, but it won't be, the lifestyle that everybody's used to. But sometimes you just have to do that, just like your household budget. Sometimes you have to cut a few things out, even though they were fun while they lasted.
Well, I think the chances are better than 50-50 of VOTA that it's going R&R.
I think that's
they're
right.
80-20.
I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
I think you're right, though.
these flaws are
Yeah.
deep, significant, and uncorrectable. And the only way to fix it is to go back to neutral. And that's the other thing what the board is for. The board is there to view these revenue neutral rate situations and make sure they're followed to the letter of the law. And they haven't been. There's no question they have not been. So, are they going to say, well, we'll give them a free pass? Then you better be willing to give everybody
Yeah.
free passes.
Yeah.
Because this is, irreversible error. It's bad. And I just figured up just to double check my math. I got to the same number on this, 5.9 million they originally put out there, which it's not going to be anywhere near that. I've said that in print. I've said that for a long, long time. It's not going to be anywhere near that. And it's probably going to be more in the
Mid-range.
2.6, 2.7. And now, you already got 2.5 put away, but to have thrown this at the people like this and scapegoated that for what you really wanted was to just up your budget across the board. And I was shocked the other night when the question was asked, well, where else in the budget did we go up? What else did we increase? And I hear them say, well, you just have to get a copy of the budget and just go look at it. Like, you don't have a list? You knew what you would have, what went up from what?
You should have been able to do that off the top of your head.
Well, if they had 8 meetings,
Yeah. What caused that to go up there?
you
And
should have
there
been
might
able to
more than-
know.
Yeah, it might have been more than one factor, but, it would have been, well, you just know. You should know.
Yeah.
Without
Here's the
saying,
7
go
lines.
get your own copy of the budget.
Yeah.
You were the guys and the gals that went through that and spent, a lot of hours looking at it.
Why is a commissioner asking how much of this went towards the restricted, or supposed to be restricted, the reserve for claims? How much of this went towards reserve for claims versus the rest of the budget? You're asking that after it's, well, I got to give Steve, who asked that question, credit. He didn't vote for the budget. But they're just now asking things like that, and they've already voted for this budget?
Yeah.
What do they know and what do they not know about this and the process? And I have a lot of questions about how they got here and what they actually know and what they actually think their role is with the budget.
Well, that's kind of speaking from a few years of experience. That's a really good question. How did you get in this situation? I don't recall anything like this ever happening before. I recall heartburn and sleepless nights about thinking that I might have to increase the mill levy 2 or 3. You know, and I never would have dreamed that anybody could have said, well, let's just make it 13.45 or 14 or whatever. You know, and I mean, to me, that just didn't make good sense. But I wasn't there, and they decided on that number, and it is what it is. So, you know, but I can't believe that it didn't cause, or it should have caused some sleepless nights thinking about, man, what am I going to tell my constituents? But I guess you don't tell them anything. You just send out the letter, and here you go, pay your taxes.
And we have tried. I've sent Scott. Scott's the chair. It's just normal that you go to the chair. Just think about
Sure.
that. If you were at the, let's think about Shannon. He's the chair of the Transportation Committee.
Yep.
So if you were a reporter and you had questions about transportation funding, who would you ask?
Well, you'd probably ask the chair.
That's just normal.
Yeah.
That's what you would do. The chair,
Yeah.
you would ask them. Obviously, I've asked questions of administration, and they told me everything needs to be a public record request moving forward.
So it has been.
Yeah, but those are limited to just asking for a record. You know, when you're trying to ask for a question, like you made this statement, you know, do you still stand by that statement? You said that this was paid off in 25 when it's paid off in 21, 4 years ago. Do you still stand by that statement? Or because to this day, to this moment, that is the public record statement. There's been nothing else to correct that from the county's position.
Well, you know, for me, you'd been proud to say, hey, we paid that off back in 2020 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Of course, that was that other commission, you know, that really got things going the wrong way, I guess, and so they didn't want any credit, but to be given for that or acknowledge that. But on the other hand,
And didn't everybody just buy that? Didn't everyone say, yeah, those guys messed it up because they had the microphone and they put that out there? But what changed that? When we got the document that showed the settlement between the county and P&G and said, hey, hold on. They did what? They came up with an agreement that didn't cause some massive mill increase?
Yeah.
That didn't cause some financial upheaval? They made a deal.
Yeah.
They worked out a compromise.
well, we even suggested they use that as a template to, you know, design another settlement. I mean, sure, there was some changes that could have been made, but on the other hand, I mean, it was all laid out there, you know, about, you know, how it worked. So, but I don't really know where we're at, other than, you know, we're still talking about it, and nothing's been resolved.
No. And
we're waiting on somebody else to do our work.
I'm still wondering why questions like that was asked at a commission meeting, if everyone's being involved in the conversation, and know how did we get from that to this proposal that 3 people voted on, and yet some people still's like, wait a minute, was this what we talked about the last time we were together? You can go watch their video of their work sessions. I don't remember them talking about any of these numbers showing up at all. It just showed up a night when they're ready to vote. And how did they get to that? That's why government's supposed to be done in the open.
Yeah.
That's why signing documents can't be done in the back room. That's why you can't just walk up to someone and say, hey, I'm applying for this money. Just sign this and we can apply for this money.
Yep.
Okay. No, you say, oh, I can't. You know, we have to take a vote on that. I'm just one. It's
Well,
funny they tell me now they're just one, but then they sign documents they were just one too, and they can't do that.
Well, you know, especially when it involves the expenditure of matching funds.
Right.
You know, I mean, if it was, you know, just a grant and solely a grant, that might have been a little bit different story. But when you're talking about matching funds, that means the use of tax money. You know, if you get $50,000 and you got to match it with 20 or something like that, or 50 or whatever the number is, you know, that's when the entire commission needs to be aware of that and decide that, do we have the money first? And second, do we want to do this because of all of these things that we have to do in addition to just, you know, giving our money to get a little back? You know, that's when the entire commission has to know about it.
Well,
And
tell me
it's just
this.
good policy.
Why does it took an entire commission vote to waive a few $100s for the activity center, but it would take no vote to match $179,000 on a grant? Now, why would you need to vote on this, which
Not on that.
and not on that? Does that make any sense whatsoever? If a commissioner can't even say, okay, yeah, we're going to waive the rental fee or the cleanup fee or
Yep.
whatever fee,
Yep.
if he can't even do that singular, and they shouldn't,
No.
then why would we even think it's okay to sign off on a grant that's going to take that we're going to match with $179,000 and all of the strings that come along with? We'll give you this money, but you've got to do this and this and this and this and this.
I don't know. There's really no answer other than you can't.
Yeah, that's the answer. Legally, you can't. Allows that. Matter of fact, the commission is one. No one can act on their own and say they represent the commission. No one can sign off on their own and say, I sign off for the commission. It takes a vote.
And they got to be in session.
That's right. It's got to be done out in the open.
Yep.
It's called the Open Meetings Act. You can't take action behind closed doors. It's got to be out in the open.
Sure. That keeps you out of a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble.
That's why you have to do it.
Yep.
But no, we're going to go and sign off on documents, and that's just the way we do it. Oh, and then when it
Yep.
comes up, it goes, well, that's how I was taught to do it. That's what we're supposed to do. No.
Nah, nobody taught you to do that.
What are they
Nobody
teaching?
gave you nobody voted to allow that.
What are they teaching at the Kansas Association of Counties?
I have no idea.
You're supposed to go and learn how to be a commissioner. They love
Yeah.
to tell you how to be a commissioner.
Well, you know, just follow Robert's Rules of Order book. That'd help quite a bit.
Yep.
You know.
Wouldn't
Well,
hurt.
have we got any answers here?
I don't know. Let's see.
See if any folks out there
I think people were just
name the U.S. war between the North and the South.
no answers.
No answer.
Now I know you guys know
That's
the
not.
answer to that.
If not, you flunked the first question. You only got 2 more chances.
Patricia says they went private 3 times last meeting, and I want people to understand this about the Open Meetings Act. There are situations where commissioners can go into executive session.
Yeah.
There's never anything that says you must go in to do this, that, the other. None.
Well, they always state why they're going. You know, it might be
Right.
brief, you know, but it's either for legal or employee personnel.
Right, non-elected
And,
personnel.
Yeah, non-elected personnel.
So that means they can't go in there and talk about another commissioner. That's that's an elected person.
Yep.
You want to talk about them? You do that out in front. You can't do that behind closed doors. The other thing is, just by bringing in a lawyer, then doesn't mean now we can talk about this, that. No, it can only be privileged. The information still has to be privileged between the commission and the lawyer. You know, if it's stuff that can be said outside, that needs to be said outside. It's supposed to be stuff only, like if you're negotiating. Yeah, you go in and you talk about negotiating.
Yep.
You know, I would question whether even going in to get a status update, where are we at on this case? What does it matter if that's out? Now, if it's something that you're still in negotiation with the other side, fine. But this idea that, you know, I saw a meeting the other day with the planning and zoning, and they went to executive session with the lawyer to talk about planning and zoning when it comes to special use permits. What's that all about? Why couldn't that discussion, just bringing a lawyer in the room? I mean,
I don't know.
is this the new thing? It's just we're always going to have executive sessions because we just bring a lawyer in the room and that makes it okay? Why are we talking about, and I know it's about wind, but if that stuff needs to happen, it needs to happen out in the open.
Well, ordinarily, you go in and you listen to, the settlement, if you've reached a settlement, or if you don't, well, they offered this, but let's offer that, But once you reach that settlement, then you come out and you vote you come out of executive session, and then you vote for the offer, or you vote against it, to accept it or reject it, but that's all, about in public, but it's just, the legal settlement work usually takes place behind closed doors because, it's kind of like, having somebody, announcing that this big company's coming and they got this property, they're looking for property and all of that, and somebody finds out about it and they buy it ahead of time, and then they're in charge of, the property. So,
And that should
there's
be.
certain things.
That
yeah,
should be.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
certain things that don't need to be, don't require to be disclosed, and don't need to be. But I don't know. It's like I say, Robert's Rules of Order is really pretty simple. It lays it all out, how to do things, and if you follow that, you can usually keep out of trouble, whether it's executive sessions or making motions, seconding motions. But if you ignore it, before long, this don't usually have a happy ending.
Yeah, and I want to correct one more thing before we go to the weather, and that is people saying that people are suing the county. No one's suing the county. This is a complaint with the Board of Tax Appeals that the process was not followed. That's what's being done, that there were flaws in the system. That the document that they used got the wrong year on it. That the letter they sent out to everybody, they didn't follow that. There are plenty of flaws to be shared. They misinformed the public at those meetings about things that deceptive to the public. And I think also, they already had the amount put on their resolution, when normally that should be left blank in case the discussion leads it elsewhere. Or in other words, then if they just go ahead and fill it in, then why's the public part of this anyway? It's a joke. Yeah. That's how it was handled. They handled it like a joke. We're just doing this because we have to, but we're still going to do the tax and we're still going to do the amount we said. We don't really care what you guys come and say. We just have to let you do it. And now once we've done it, we're doing what we always were going to do.
Well, I think the real failure was being able to explain why that was necessary. And I don't know that any of us have got a clear answer yet as to why that was necessary. But
well, they haven't talked about the needs throughout the budget. They've just thrown out two things, this case and inflation. That was it.
yeah, but I mean, that still don't total up to be 14 mil.
It doesn't, not even close.
I mean, nowhere near. If you allow the max on all of it.
Yep, nowhere near.
All right. You
Well-
know what that answer was yet? I'm interested to see if everybody was on track. Anybody on there yet?
Nope.
Okay. I'll give you the answer so you can remember that. So in case you have to take this test, the name of the U.S. war between the North and the South. If you dream that it might be the Civil War or the war between the states, you would be correct.
I don't know what, of all the names of the wars, that would be the easiest one.
Well, unless you're old like me and you kind of forget those things, but yeah.
But if you're a newcomer to the country, that's important to know.
Yeah.
We did have a
Sure.
civil war,
Yeah,
and here's how it went.
that's right.
And that, one last plug for Netflix. We ought to get some money from Netflix. We're always talking about things on Netflix. But it's called Death by Lightning. and it's the assassination of James Garfield. But it is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
I went to Garfield Elementary, and
Okay.
we never really talked about why the school was named Garfield. But watch that. It's a 4-part series. You want to find out that we're just not new to corrupt government? Watch that one.
Yep.
And it's a well done show. I've gone back since, and I've researched some of these people to see if what they showed is actually how some of the things went. They kind of show at the same time, they show what's happening, how Garfield rose so fast, and how his assassin, his life was going at the same time. And then till they finally have this situation.
Yep.
But it's called Death by Lightning. So if you see that, you think, what's that? It's a good show. So don't miss that. It's worth watching.
We watched one last night. We were just kind of thumbing through the channels on YouTube and found one on farm equipment. I'm telling you what, I was amazed at some of the stuff that they had for, they showed a machine that would pick strawberries. It would identify the ones that were ripe, and it'd just snip that little old thing right off of there and take it over here and dump it in the basket. They had, I don't know, there was several different ways to pick up hay bales. There was one machine that went down these rows of blueberries, and it rattled them bushes, and the ripe ones fell off. And I mean, it was fascinating to me to see the technology that had gone into making those machines. I mean, it was something. Of course, I was always kind of interested in farm machinery anyway, but I don't even remember what the name of that thing was. It had the picture up there, and so I told Brian, I said, mash that button, let's see. Well, he was kind of amazed himself, at some of the equipment they had. So there's all kinds of educational stuff out there if you just take a little bit of time to look at it.
There are. Lightning in a bottle. The assassination of James Garfield, President Garfield. So check that out. We don't want to leave you without giving you your squeaky clean car wash weather report. Today's going to be sunny with a high near 73. Breezy with the west wind 10 to 20 miles per hour with gusts as high as 30 miles per hour. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 38. South-southwest wind around 7 miles per hour, becoming north-northwest after midnight. Looking ahead to the rest of your week, Tuesday, talking about being sunny with a high of 66. Wednesday, 70. Thursday, chance of showers, high of 62. Friday, showers, high of 50. Saturday, 58. And Sunday, 60. That's your weather outlook, and that's the news and views you can use on the high plains. Monday, November 17, 2025. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning. Until then, this is Road Leader in Times with Jim Rice saying when you live in Liberal
Or Sikeston, Missouri.
there's no place like home. Have a great day, everybody.